Thank you again so much for coming on with us and sharing your morning with us. I thought this would be a perfect time because I was either running around with the kids making breakfast or probably doing the same thing, just enjoying a slow morning in my robe. So appreciate you guys spending your morning with us. Today, I'm super excited to talk about this because this is something I am obsessed with, especially now that I am in my 40s. As of last year, officially in my 40s, turning 41 this year, but I also had baby three last year, which was a lot on my body, which is kind of the reason why I went down the rabbit hole of really looking at the hormonal shift and how that affects me because I come from a bodybuilding background. I did competitive bodybuilding for about 3 years, but I also grew up doing mixed martial arts. So fitness has always been about everything that I do. I live and breathe it. However, this time around, um, having a baby at this age and having it, my third one being a C-section, really took me for a roller coaster, not just emotions, but I ended up going down the route of really trying to figure out the best way to support my body, whether that was my nutrition and my workouts, because it looked really different. And that's when I came across a couple different neuroscientists and athletes now that have done all the research and all the R&D on how to support women, our muscle health, and how much that affects us down the line in regards to avoiding inflammation, avoiding becoming type 2 diabetic, because that's a large thing that's happening in Western society, along with cognitive decline, and also coming across Dr. Louisa Nicola, who talks about her studies, which is primarily on Alzheimer's, and finding out most about 85% of people with Alzheimer's is women, and that's due to just really a decrease of muscle health, which will eventually trickle down to a cognitive decline. So, if that's not enough of a shaker for you guys to really emphasize of like, holy shit, excuse my language, but it is so important for us to realize what we eat, to not just like worry about us aesthetically, but to make sure that when we're 70, when we're 60, that we're still able to chase our grandkids. We're still able to run a marathon if we want to. We're still able to be active, and God forbid we fall most of the time, because your muscle health is also linked to the bone density and your health in that route. If you break a hip, you at 70, most likely in the next year, there's more chances of you passing away from not recovering correctly, and that's just because we're just frail. So we start to also lose bone density due to hormonal shifts, lack of estrogen, and all of that. So that's kind of my background into why I was talking to Chiah recently on my podcast, and she's started being an instructor with Pelvic Core. So me being that I had my third one C-section, it worked out perfectly. So we hope that this brings you guys information, at least to start implementing different things, because we're also very aware, and Chiah, you can talk to this, is we are fed so much information from left to right. If we're on social media, it's coming. You look up one thing and you're going to get that in your feed all day long. It's like, what do I listen to? What do I implement? And what can I actually apply that's going to allow me to be consistent so that it can be part of a lifestyle and not just a diet or a trend? Because consistency is going to be the most important. And that's just from my experience of bodybuilding and just having this being my life for pre-baby, post-baby, and kind of where I'm at now. So that's my background. Do we have any questions? We have some new people that came in. That was kind
Yeah.
of a lot, but I kind of want to leave this as an open back and forth if there's any questions you guys want to ask. But I think if not, we can just keep on moving on. But that's kind of my background and the reason why we decided to do the workshop today.
Yes. Yeah. Super exciting. Um, it's been really fun getting to know you, Casey, just over the last, few years, but really like we've been powering through talking about pelvic floor a lot and just life in general and women's health. And you, like you said, it's a deep dive, and don't let it overwhelm you. like implementing one new thing is great. That's a good step. Like, don't think that you gotta leave here and be like, oh shit, every day I need to do like an hour of this and I need to go buy this thing and whatever. Like, that's not our intention here. We just really want to inspire you to be able to implement, one new thing, try that out, check it out, see what works for you, and go from there. So I'm super excited to learn from you, Casey, this morning about protein intake first. I started my morning with something new. Um,
Ooh,
Cottage cheese into my eggs and made a yummy bowl of salsa and avocado and all that. So started out with like 25 grams of protein this morning. So here we go. So
yes,
yes,
yes. Can I
I'm
ask
super.
everybody else what they had for breakfast? They're like,
I
no, I'm still in
so
bed in my robe.
yeah, I'm just on the coffee right now, but it's always been really easy for me to skip breakfast. And I have a slow metabolism, so I've just tried to keep calories low, especially if I want to slim down. But I mean this is for, my whole life. But I've recently done some research and apparently eating protein in the morning consistently, it actually helps you to better manage your weight. So
Yeah.
I've started to incorporate more protein in the morning. And then I also, sidebar, did South Beach diet for the first time,
Hmm.
which is low glycemic, high protein. And that was so effective. I was really shocked by it because I've done a lot of different diets and, of course, incorporating different diets into my lifestyle, like you said, Casey. But I found that to be extremely beneficial. So I've kind of leaned into that and been doing like incorporating a lot of that. So whereas like I used to snack on carrots, which are super healthy for you, it turns out they have a high sugar content. So I've really reduced my carrots. But celery has always been a go-to. But yeah, I will be eating a protein breakfast here shortly.
Nice, nice. Anybody else want to share what they ate?
There's some in the comments too. Nice work, ladies. 2 cups of coffee. Let's go, Claire.
Yeah, you could shoot some protein in there. I mean, the only thing with the protein coffee is it has to be iced because if you've done it before, no matter what kind of protein you use, it's going to be chunky, especially for like me. I pack the crap out of my coffee. It has creatine, it has collagen, it has the protein, it has grass-fed butter, which is why I don't, buy Starbucks or any of that because if you can make, that sweet I love my coffee, guys. Like it just gives me that warm, cozy feeling, and then you could add all the good nutrients in it. It's like a double whammy for me. So that's what I have in my cup currently. Which the only downfall to that is, let's say your coffee gets cold. I do fresh press. It doesn't hold its heat for very long, and it's not like covered. That you would have to rewarm it, otherwise you waste all the supplements that you threw in your coffee. So I tend to have a tendency of leaving like my cup of coffee maybe like a quarter left, and then that means that's all the supplements. So that's the only difference about when you do the coffee protein. So unless you're gonna chug it right off the bat, then that's easy peasy. But yeah, that's what I did this morning. Anybody else want to share? No. Thank you for sharing in the chat though. Okay, so I'm going to keep going along. I have a lot of notes just because this topic can be very overwhelming. And again, there's so many different things that we could talk about when it comes to protein. So I'm going to start with understanding, which some of you may know already, but will be a baseline, is understanding the importance of why we need to be aware of why we need to take protein. And basically, it's to support our muscle health. But now research is also sharing that it's going to help us decrease our chances of things like osteopenia, sarcopenia, osteoporosis, decrease in bone density. And all of that will come with the seasons of your life. So depending on, a 16-year-old to 35, if you don't mind, most of us ladies are in here. If you guys don't mind putting your age in the chat, that may also help us. But I'll be turning 41 in September. That's my age. But it also comes with seasons. So if you're 16 to I'll say 27, your hormones are going to be different than somebody who's 41, 60, and so on. So we're looking at premenopause or perimenopause, premenopause, postmenopause. And with all of that, we are against the wall when it comes to having we're muscle resistant, we become our estrogen decreases, and all of that is a trickle effect to muscle health and now also cognitive health. So us being aware of why we need to take protein again is just got to be in the back of your head, and to prioritize it is going to be up to you, because it wasn't until I did my competition and I worked with a nutritionist for 3 years that I realized that my day to day diet, and this is just how I grew up, this is what our parents fed us, is we did not get any source of protein. I mean, if you look at the food pyramid, it was primarily you have your starches, and it's reversed now, but we were getting fed a lot of crappy food. And so now that the studies are out there, I think people, one, you can use your AI, Chat GPT, Gemini, and put your information in there, how old you are, the season you're in, what you're looking to do. And if you could refer some scientists or some doctors that talk about this, that may benefit you guys. So I'm always going to put that out there to not be afraid to use AI in that way. With that said, there's a couple doctors. I'm going to share my screen that kind of talk about this, and you guys could screenshot it however you want. But because they do the R&D work, they are doctors that literally talk about this all day long. Their patients can vary from somebody coming that is completely sedentary, who just does not have an active lifestyle, all the way to somebody who is against the wall for they're getting their biomarkers done by their doctor, and they're seeing that they're on a path to being type 2 diabetic, because again, muscle health is related to regulating your glucose. So for all of us who have sugar cravings at night, that means we need to up our protein. That's our body saying we need more protein. So let me share my screen. Before I do that, actually, this is the book that I would highly suggest if you want to deep dive on the importance of muscle health and longevity. And when we say longevity, that kind of will cover muscle health, cognitive health. There's a lot of different things she talks about, but it's from Dr. Gabrielle Leon. She has a new book that it's like a second part to this, but she deep dives on her studies where primarily she was looking at people who were extremely overweight, and she ended up realizing that a lot of it is related to muscle health. And let me share that screen with you guys now.
And also, I see everybody taking notes, but we will be sharing the link to this video so you can watch it again or share it with somebody. And then we'll put out show notes as well that'll have links to various things.
All right. Can you guys all see my screen?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So this is Dr. Gabrielle Leon. She is somebody that I completely admire everything she does. She's also a mom. Most of the women that I follow are moms and have just either been an endurance athlete or some sort of competitive athlete or a neuroscientist. And so for me, having those two mixtures fits my lifestyle. And then adding the fact that they're moms, because to me, that's also a threefold for our lifestyles and our seasons. The other person that I both think me and Chiah are absolutely in love with is Dr. Stacy Sims. She has books, YouTube, Mel Robbins. She's just recently on there. I would check that out. They go in complete deep dives on the whys, the hows, and just even have specific supplements. I think Stacy talks about that you can incorporate. So when you guys have time, you guys could refer to them. And then the other person that I really, really would like you guys to take a time. It wasn't until this year that I came across her on the doc. I think it's the Docked podcast where it's the Diary of CEOs, and she studies specifically Alzheimer diseases. And there is tons of links now that it's mostly women that suffer from this disease, and a lot of it comes from muscle health that's related to our cognitive decline. So for me, that was huge because I have my grandma that passed 2 years ago from dementia, a little bit different, but also very sedentary lifestyle. My mom now, who is 64, who has osteoporosis and rheumatoid arthritis, very sedentary, never worked out in her life, very small. It's not like she overate, but these are the things that made me want to make sure that I take care of myself to the best ability, not just for myself and my family, but I also have a son who is autistic, nonverbal, special needs, very touchy subject for me. That's given me a reason to even be able, I have to take care of myself. So if I could outlive myself or outlive him, that would be great. So for the moms out there, it is so important for us to take care of ourselves, especially when we have kids. And so that's kind of the rabbit hole for me. Dr. Vonda Wright, she originally was an osteoporosis doctor, specifically for feet as well. And so she worked with a lot of athletes because a lot of endurance athletes do impact training. And so in that study, she ended up going down the route of muscle health. And she'll also talk to you guys about that and how that looks for you guys, depending on what age. She will tell you that, a 75-year-old should be able to do sprints. So if you guys have, I'll put this in the show notes, but these are my goats, if you would call it, of women's health that I go to.
She also does a lot of really good information around hormones and estrogen. So she's somebody that I look towards for that kind of information a lot too.
Wanda, right?
Good
Yeah.
there.
Nice. Yeah, I could put like so many more, but I'm like, oh, I feel like I'll overwhelm you guys. But like the typical, hey, did you binge the Netflix show? And I'm like, no, but I did binge this, and I'll send Chiah videos on YouTube. So I think that's the cool thing about our sisterhood, as far as having women that we could talk to about this, because it's hard. Like I could talk to my husband about this, but it's like he doesn't care. Guys are
Yeah.
they're not muscle resistant. They don't care. So um yeah. So we'll go back to that. Thank you. And again, I'll put that in our show notes so that you guys could go back to it. But yeah, that was my main. Did somebody have a question?
Oh, I
Oh,
think it's just background noise.
There was
No,
a
I
question in
actually
the
have a
chat.
question. Casey, you've mentioned muscle resistant twice, and I don't know what that is.
oh yes. Okay. So that's the gist of that part. I wanted to talk about muscle resistant, and that is basically us, our body is no longer producing the lactate that we would at 16, 17. The way our muscles respond to stress is different. And so when I say that we're muscle resistant, that means that at 17, I'll use me for example. I did bodybuilding competition from 27 to 30, and the way I trained then was effective versus what I train now. Back then, they would have me train where I was doing high amounts of reps, but my weight was very minimal because that's what my body responded to. However, everybody's different, so I want to keep that in mind. Everybody's metabolism is different, and that also comes into play. But the lactate and the amino acids that you get from your muscles are different when you get older because of the lack of estrogen that our body starts to go through as we get older. So it's kind of a trickle effect from the lack of hormones that's feeding our body and our brain function to our muscle health. But that's the best way I could explain it, is the lack of estrogen that's feeding and lubricating our muscles is different than when it was when we were 16 to probably 27. Then you add in the factors of having babies. We most likely have decrease in calcium, and then most likely in a rebuilding stage on a continuous basis. So for me, I've had my baby for the past decade, 3 of them. 33 is when I had my first one, then again 36, and then at 40. So I feel like my body, though I was able to get back to a healthy like body fat and get back my muscle strength. It's just, I feel like my body is definitely different. So I no longer need to work out for 2 hours, because not only is that putting more stress on my body, which is what working out is, but the recovery for me is substantially different. And when we say recovery, when we're talking about pre and post workout, when we're working out, anything exercise is stress, anything recovery is growth. So our growth in muscle is just a lot slower when we get older due to the decline of estrogen. That makes sense. Cool. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to, because is understanding the importance of protein or muscle mass, and then why we need to take protein kind of is all in that. Is we're just prone as women with the hormonal shifts, the seasons of our life, especially if we're having babies, and just our environment. If we're in a high stress environment, those people who work like 9 to 5 jobs. For me, I have a corporate background. I'm actually still in banking, so a lot of the times, most of my life since I was 20, I'm sitting at a desk. It wasn't till recently that I'm like, that is so bad for you. Those who are on a farm are living a very unsedentary lifestyle. I think you guys, you have more an advantage to keeping that muscle there. But no matter what, all women will go through this, and depending on your genetics, will come into play. And so that's why I'm referring to these doctors, because I can only share what I have learned and what I've experienced and what I have applied to my life in over the past 2 decades through fitness, being a mom, postpartum, pre baby. But if you guys want to like really put this into your day to day, like I'm going to watch one episode a day so I could really learn, it'd be beneficial to you guys. So anybody else have any questions before I move on? Oh, we're at 9:30. Okay, cool. Okay, so we understand that we need it for brain health. We understand we need it to help us regulate glucose. A lot of times girls will talk about their sugar craving, or oh, I can't burn body fat. And the formula for that is protein. Again, protein, protein, protein. Protein helps us in so many things. It's unbelievable. And because we're talking about that part, let me go into the actual timing for protein, because with protein, with these, everybody's lifestyle is different. So if you're going to incorporate protein, the rule of thumb you should have is understand that protein should be fuel and recovery. So if you're going to be working out, first thing in the morning, you should most definitely be taking in protein. If you're going to be eating protein in the morning, a lot of times some women have a very small appetite in the morning. That's when I think the smoothies are the easiest to take. But if we go back to Dr. Sims, she will actually say that if you are training weightlifting for no more than 45 minutes, you can consider 15 grams of protein, and that will set you pretty much good level for your workout. Now, if you are going to add in some sort of cardio to that, and it's going to put you at an hour long time frame as far as working out, then you will need to make sure that you include carbs. So a lot of women are extremely afraid of carbs because of all the trendy diets out there. I would say that the rule of thumb for carbs is use it for fuel, definitely not for recovery, unless you're doing some sort of endurance run. And I'm learning that myself as I am going on my third half marathon. That is something that I've decided to do at 40 and post baby. So I'm learning on how to incorporate the carbs, but most importantly, before and after, you got to have the protein. That is most important. And let's say you're like me and you're not going to be able to work out till 4 or 5 because you got to, work or whatever you got going on, then obviously that's going to look different. But we'll go back to the rule of thumb. Your first and your last meal should be the highest amount of protein. One, if you have your 30 grams to 40 grams of protein first meal of the day, then you will actually be setting yourself up for success throughout the day, because not only is it going to manage and help your glucose level stay stable, which avoids you from sugar crashing or wanting the carbs, It's also going to give you the energy and the brain focus that you need because your muscles are being fed the aminos and the lactate. And lactate, the brain loves lactate. Um, so yeah, make sure that you guys get it first thing in the morning and last meal, because then when you go to bed, that will also do the same thing. As far as when you're going to bed, you're going to be burning fat and it's going to keep your glucose at a very stable level, which then gives you less stress and less cortisol being pushed out. Then for you will have a better sleep. So rule of thumb, post and pre and first and last. If you're going to make sure that you take some sort of high amount of protein, those are the meals time frames that you guys should consider. Any
Casey, could you
questions?
address the issue with drinking coffee too soon or before the protein?
Oh yes. Okay, so recently this is kind of gut health, guys, but it's so related to our hormones. If we go down that rabbit hole, a lot of it has to do with our hormones as well. So for me, I recently came across some studies, and so is Chia, that first thing in the morning, unfortunately, women, we are just going to be like cortisol, like spewing out right off the bat. Then we add in coffee, it normally will spike our cortisol. So there's a lot of studies now that if you can get in the 30 grams of protein first thing in the morning and then go work out, that would be pretty much ideal to setting up yourself for success when it comes to nutrition and your fitness. For me personally, it's a lot to take 30 grams right off the bat, only because I have 11, or he's going to be one this week, actually. But I use bone, excuse me, what is it? Bone broth, grass fed bone broth, which gives me 12 grams of protein. And then I'll have exactly what Chia said, which is my go to cottage cheese, usually about half a cup, and then 4 eggs, 4 or 5 eggs, which is a lot. And each egg, because I've been in this fitness lifestyle for so long, is only 6 grams of protein. So if girls are only having 1 or 2, that's only 12 grams of protein in their entire meal. So 2 boiled eggs is really just not going to set you up for success. Um, and then from there, I do my day to day work, and then I usually don't work out till 4, which is later in the day. However, I will say on the weekends when I don't have to work on the computer or anything like that, I absolutely love the way I feel when my morning workout is in, because then I don't know, I just feel a good energy throughout the day. I don't feel any sort of cravings. I feel like my metabolism is very stable. And so for me, I truly do believe that would benefit women if you have the opportunity to work out first thing in the morning. And again, 15 grams of protein is perfect enough to those who are just going to do weightlifting. But if you're going to have, cardio added to that, and you're looking at an hour 15, because nowadays we really need to add in that stretch and that recovery cool down, I would consider doing the 30 grams of protein and getting that in, whether that's, your coffee, your bone broth, and then your eggs. I try to split it up, because if I was going to eat 6 scrambled eggs, that's just boring. It's not even, you'll get bored. You'll get bored of that. And for me, it's all about balance. I'm a mom. I'm not trying to live a very restricted lifestyle. I don't think that's healthy for women. And so even my kids will eat the same: cottage cheese, eggs. I try to not give them any sort of juice because of sugar. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at that. And again, these doctors will talk about that. I think, Chia, you have been pretty adamant about doing no coffee. Oh yeah, and then the no coffee for at least the 2 hours of
Yeah,
waking up, because that's really like going to stress your
90 minutes
body.
ideally is so what from what I learned is that like we have a spike in adenosine like first thing when we wake up in the morning. And then we go to have coffee, which like a lot of us do. Like I try nowadays, I've been doing tea in the weekdays, and then I give myself the weekends to have coffee
Mm,
because it's like a treat, it's something
good one.
special, right? Um, and I try to think of it that way because I think when I was drinking coffee consistently all the time, like first of all, my gut was not happy. Second, I had crazy anxiety. And then I felt like my sleep was way off. And so now I'm waking up, I'm having water first. And then I try to eat some protein. Like I'm literally like, I gotta hold my nose almost to like eat in first thing in the morning. I will naturally not eat until like 11 or 12 if I had the choice. And then have that protein, then do my workout, and then go for my caffeine, whatever beverage or whatever I end up doing. So yeah, that's like Dr. Stacy Sims recommends that 90-minute thing. So having protein first, do your workout, whatever, wait 90 minutes to have that caffeine. And that'll set you up for less sleep issues. It'll give you better consistent energy throughout the day is the main point there.
Yeah, it's so much, guys. It's so much. But I think, the baseline, the awareness that we have, just being like, oh shit, I got to get it. Not every day is good. I'm going to tell you that straight up. Some days I'm like, fuck it. I want my coffee. It is 5 a.m. or 2 a.m. because these marathons are crazy. I just need a little bit of coffee. Going the extra effort of like making sure I have single source coffee, making sure it's organic, if it's going to be something like that. But in the back of my head, I'm like, oh man, it's not good for our gut lining, the coffee right off the bat on an empty stomach. And a lot of Ayurvedic doctor, how do you say that, Chia? Yeah, they'll talk about that. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm not a big tea person, so I do the bone broth. Like I'm down with bone broth. I'll do the bone broth. It gives me that savory vibe, 12 grams of protein, cool. And then I'll wait. But some mornings, I'm taking my coffee. The thing is, we can't beat ourselves up about it. Women tend to do that, and just be conscious of it and make the effort. Right now, I love the saying of let's stop counting calories and start measuring effort, because that's really kind of where we're at in this world. Like, even the food, when I talk about, I was writing down notes as far as getting, nutrient dense food. That's so hard to get in here in California. Like unless you're growing your own stuff and you have your own cattle, we are against a lot when it comes to getting healthy food. So, yeah, I think what that is pretty much what I wanted to talk about when it comes to being aware, the whys, the times. I did want to break down just to keep it shorter because we're already at 9:40. I want to give Chia some time to really dive in the pelvic core area. So this particular area I want to talk about is just going to concise everything we talked about in 3 different pillars: the intake, the 3 meals that I would highly suggest you consider. And then we kind of already talked about the when. When we talk about whole foods, we want to talk about not processed foods. So, a lot of people will be like, oh, you had a question? No? Okay. Oh, I got a burger, which is great. I love In-N-Out. I love the burgers. I don't mind. But whole dense foods is because when we're talking about protein intake, we have, and Dr. Gabrielle Leon will talk about it. It's not so much protein like, oh, I got to have red meat. I got to have chicken. I got to have eggs. Yes, all of those. But when they're talking about protein, it's specific to the 9 amino acids that's in a chain of like 21, I believe. And you get primarily the highest amount of amino acids in red meat. So that's why you'll see a lot of bros in bodybuilding talk about their steaks. People in the carnivore diet, keto diet, they love their steaks. When we're talking about red meat, this is something I had to learn because I didn't like red meat at one point. Then I love red meat because my body responds very well to a keto diet, which most women do. But I'm also against genetics at 41 that I did not know about, that I really had to start learning about. So I guess, the older we get, our body responds to how we break down the fats and all of that as well. So you have to keep that in mind when you are considering red meat. However, that is the whole food that's going to give you the most amount of amino acids in a natural form. Second to that, I will always say eggs. I know it sounds like, oh, eggs, what can you do with eggs? There's so many things you could do with eggs because you can make sweet stuff with it, pancakes, egg salad. The reason I will preach on eggs as far as most whole dense is because when I did bodybuilding, I also learned that it digests the quickest. So if you're going to go work out, if you can get eggs in your body, it's going to feed your muscle a lot quicker than if you ate red meat or like steak or something like that for breakfast. So understanding those factors as well is going to be super important to you. And then again, I always talk about not having a restrictive diet because it's hard to keep that consistent. And when we're talking about making this a lifestyle, you have to have a baseline for things that you can enjoy. The more foods that you can eat, and not just foods, meals on a regular basis that are as plain as possible, that are as clean as possible, the highest amount of protein and fiber at this age is going to serve you in so many ways. And as mundane as it sounds, like a lot of people talk about, oh, you eat the same thing every single day, but my body knows how to respond to it. And that's like really efficient for us women, especially when our hormones are going up and down and we live in a very stressful environment. Do we have any questions about that?
I see a comment. Courtney put in a comment about recommendations for ground beef, which she was surprised by.
Okay.
Or what was the surprise, Courtney? The fat content or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I buy ultra lean ground beef for my dog, so I know that's
Oh,
a
nice.
possibility. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in a vegetarian, primarily healthy household, so I was always told that red meat was, something to be avoided, and also or Western civilizations that are more industrialized have a higher rate of cancer that's correlated with red meat consumption. So I was just really surprised to recently find that fitness advocates are suggesting that you should eat more red meat. And I saw one in particular video about ground beef, and I think it was because of the fat content. But yeah, I think it was just against everything I've known my whole life. So it was really surprising. But that was interesting what you said too about Casey, about how our bodies are responding to the fat and how we digest it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have been fed a lot of crap, literally, including the studies that have been out there to promote propaganda against the healthiest things for us. And so, yes, we are against maybe certain farms or brands that will give us the most corn fed, most crappiest meat. So I will say you have to try to find grass fed is probably the cleanest type of protein you can get when you're looking at red meat. But again, when we're talking about fat, I don't think women should be afraid of fat. When we're getting fat in red meat, most likely that is not trans fat, and that is a whole different subject. Right? We can go down that route. However, the fat that you're getting in whole dense foods is not going to be something you should really worry about, especially if you're living an active lifestyle. So again, the LDL, when we're talking about cholesterol and today's society of, hey, you should cut your fats out. Barbara O'Neill is a very old school homeopathic type of doctor, and she will talk about our brain literally is fat. And the fact that they have slowly demonized red meat and fats, especially for women, is it's all propaganda. So, again, everybody's body is different. Everybody grew up learning something different. I would just say that maybe start looking at why red meat doesn't have such a bad rap anymore versus why it did before, because that will send you down the rabbit hole of why it got demonized so much as far as like don't take red meat. I will say as women get older, we should probably, from what Stacy Simmons says, I think she says like no more than 2 meals a week. That's a steak of some sort, just because our body will digest it. Our bodies tends to slowly or digest slower as we get older, and when we're taking red meat, that our body has to go to work to that. So unless you're an athlete or you're going to do some sort of weightlifting, I would keep that in mind. Which is why for me, unless I'm going to do some rigorous type of workout, I really stay in the egg world, the Greek yogurt. Our bodies just can quickly digest that. It's not very heavy, but 1 or 2 meals will be normally ground beef. I don't remember the brand I have, but I try to do organic, definitely grass fed, and usually the fat is 92%. I think I'll do 85 if I have to, but 92% as far as fat ratio to the ground beef.
Yeah, that's the
And
ultra lean.
yeah, it's more expensive, but it's worth it. And then for me, I don't worry about fat so much. Again, if you're going to be active, and this is again if you guys have no underlying issues, so your doctor will tell you, but do your own research because my doctor was very concerned with my LDL because I have a very carnivore diet prior to me being pregnant and was just kind of concerned about my LDL being higher than normal, which I think right now the normal is 250. Um, and I don't know if you guys do this often, but women, you guys should definitely get your blood markers checked every year because they go up and down. And then at least if you know where you're at, you can kind of flex or, change your diet to being purposeful for longevity and so forth. So for me, don't be afraid of fats, especially if it's coming from that. Now, if you're getting fats from, I don't know, cakes and anything processed, that is concerning because that is cancerous. That's for sure in that route.
Rose has a couple of comments in the chat if you want to, and question. Let me check that out.
Where's my chats at? Oh, fiber. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Dr. Amy Shaw. Dr. Von der Wright just had her on. And maybe it's been, I don't know, they do reclips. I don't know when they actually recorded. But anyways, she has that 30-30-30 rule and fiber. Women need fiber and that comes hand in hand. I'm glad you asked that. Can everybody see this question? Her question's the bioavailability of protein, right? Uh, yes, almonds and kale have protein, but doesn't mean it's accessible to our bodies. Can you talk about more why fiber is important? Western Aid Price Organization has a lot of articles based on science around fat and protein as it relates to information. Has made beautiful, Rose. You're my friend. Yes, this is very true. There is a lot of things I could go down this rabbit hole all day. That'd probably be a whole different subject, but a lot of things that we are fed as far as um, our nutrition, our diet is just to pump up whatever they are trying to sell to us. And as you guys can see, we live in a world that's very sanitary, very unhealthy, and will promote pills like a GLP-1 and injections before they even go down the route of what's your diet, what does your fitness workout look like, what are you consuming, and that to me is baffling. So this is why me and Chi are here. We're taking it in our own hands to share with our tribe what we are learning, and hopefully you guys can apply it in the best way that you can. But to Rose's question, yes. So a lot of times I have friends that are vegetarian and vegan, and to each their own, whatever they want to do. But when it comes to their food and them trying to get the same amino acids that somebody who is not vegan or vegetarian, it's impossible. You're not going to get those amino acids in tofu, especially here in California or any, YouTube probably will kill me, but United States. It is not the same tofu that Japan's eating. We have to already know that. We are against the grit when it comes to getting whole foods that are actually filled with nutrients that aren't fake, that aren't GMO, that aren't man produced. And so for somebody who is vegan, they tend to lack B12, and that only comes from the amino acids and all of that. So for somebody who is living that lifestyle, there's a lot of doctors now and nutritionists will talk and show you how much lentils, I'm going to use lentils as an example, versus two eggs, or what, how much you would have to eat to get the same amount of nutrients through that protein. So those are other things that you guys consider when you're looking at protein. The other part of that is the fiber. Yes, you need fiber, especially women. As we get older, our body just wants to like plug everything up. And it's like, we need a release. We need to open. We need to release. We need to let out. And my mom is a great example for this. She will be, this is like totally poop talk, guys, but It is not normal to not go to the bathroom at least once or twice a day, like at least. And a lot of women suffer from this because it's their diet and the way they fuel their bodies. And unfortunately, not getting fiber in your body is one of the reasons. And so if somebody's waking up and just having coffee and then they go straight to work and then they're probably having a Starbucks and then maybe a donut at the office, you're feeling full, but my gosh, you are not feeding your body any nutrients whatsoever. And then next thing she's hasn't gone to the bathroom for 2 days. And she's like, well, I haven't really ate much. And it has nothing to do with that. So fiber, Dr. Amy Shaw will talk about a 30-30 rule, which again is the 30 grams of protein, 30 grams of fiber, and for 30 or 3 grams or three prebiotic foods that you have to take in. The 30 grams of fiber is baffling to me because if you're not, I personally don't like a lot of salads. I don't like, and you'd have, like she said, you would have to eat of, a lot of lettuce, a lot of all of that type of greenery to get those fibers. And even then, what I'm reading is our produce isn't even all that real. And there's certain vegetables that just have absolutely no benefits to our life whatsoever. So I've recently learned that chia seeds have 10 grams of fiber. If we could throw chia seeds in almost, let's say, our 3 snacks, because I'm going to wrap it up with the 3 meals you guys can incorporate. If you can get it in your 3 snacks, because you're going to have 3 solid meals where you're going to get 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. And then you're going to add in 3 snacks. So that's a total of 6 and throw in 10 grams. You would be able to have a very, very, I would say smooth life's metabolism. Because if you guys don't know, chia seeds is like really good for your digestive system. It helps burn fat. There's a lot of women that like to put it in their tea or like water with lemon in the morning and just let it soak for a little bit and then just down that. It sets up your GI tract for like a just smooth ride. So, yes, thank you for bringing up fiber. If you are going to intake fiber, I had to learn this in bodybuilding competition time. You have to have fiber or it will beat you up. So take your fiber as much as you can. Chia seeds is probably the best. I'm still learning the probiotic things, like the different foods that are probiotic. Gosh, what's her name? Mindy. There's a doctor. Chia, do you know who I'm talking about? Mindy. But she talks about this. She talks about the different type of probiotics, and one of them that I'm just going to talk about is sauerkraut. Like, I don't know, pickles, sauerkraut, adding that to our diet is very beneficial. So as far as your like house wheel of foods, it's still very basics to your macros. Like I wouldn't worry about calories. I have never worried about calories unless I'm like competing or making sure that I'm not going underneath my calories. Um, and then just making sure that my body fat and muscle mass is where they should be. Because if we are high in body fat, then we're going to be more prone to having those underlying diseases or being type 2 diabetic. And we don't want any of that. And then you guys just have to factor in your genetics. So my family's diabetes, high blood pressure, things like that. So for me, those are things that I'm looking at, and I'm constantly going to my doctor to be like, can you please put this order in? Because that's another whole situation where you literally have to beg for them to give you the right type of test. Otherwise, they're just going to give you a basic line, and it's not going to cover any of this type of information. For those who are interested in learning where their bone density is, I would ask for a DEXA scan. I believe most insurances do not cover it. So it's definitely out of pocket, but to my understanding, they'll give you a baseline to let you know if you are already prone to decrease bone density. I do a lot of weight training too, if you guys follow me on Instagram. So that's a whole different subject that I think me and Chia should cover soon. But yeah, impact training is so good for us. Any questions?
Again, I think, huh? There's some good comments in here, about the probiotic foods, supporting
Mini Bell.
or mood and serotonin levels, anything fermented. Yeah. So I think like the fermented foods is a little hard. I recently found a nice probiotic cottage cheese. And so that's kind of a double whammy. So you get your protein and your probiotic. So I'm like counting that in. I
Yes.
throw in like a bowl with a little kefir and then a little granola and some other fruit for my fibers, like mangoes or whatever. And so that's a nice way to kind of get a bunch. And my granola has chia seeds and flax seeds and
Uh,
pumpkins, all that in there. So like it's kind of like a mega power pack meal for breakfast right there. So that's a good way to get it. And to your point, Courtney, fermented sauerkraut for sure. Like if it's canned and it's in a jar on the shelf for 10 years, like it's not alive. You
yeah.
want to get the real alive stuff.
Yes, yes. Anything fermented. God, there's a doctor that talks about literally.
Mindy Peltz, is that her name? That's what
Let
Meredith
me look it up. I have to look it up.
Perez.
And it's interesting because the doctors that are talking about the importance of impact training and making sure we preload. It is Mindy Peltz. Yes, perfect. Yeah, she actually just came up on like the first thing on my thing. I love her too, but like, again, we wanted to bring this to you guys because there's just so much information, so many different doctors, so many different things that we could talk about when it comes to the woman's body and our metabolism and how we metabolite things and our hormones and our all of this stuff. So yes, she will say though that she kind of goes against what Stacey Sims when she talks about the pre-overload workouts. She does not believe that women over 40 should be weightlifting heavy, heavy, heavy. Stacey Sims would disagree. So would Nicholas. Most of the brain doctors would disagree. Again, that's not Mindy's world. She doesn't study the brain like they do. She's gut health person and hormones. So we have to factor all of those in. Although I will say, I love being able to take all those and incorporate into my life and apply it that way. So I think the most important about this that I would love for you guys to take back is just being aware of our protein, aware of the importance of this not have anything to do with aesthetics, but how your body would respond longevity wise. So it's 10 o'clock. I want to be conscious of everyone's time and give time to Chia. So I think we're going to wrap this up with the last couple things. I gave you guys the when, being aware of why you guys should lean in on whole foods versus supplements, or I should say protein bars. And I will say, because of, if you got to be quick and on the go or you're traveling, yes, pack your protein bars. But I will say protein powder is probably healthier route as far as the junk that they put in protein bars versus what they would put in a protein powder. So that's another fold, is start taking the time to look at the brands and what they're putting in it. Me personally, when it comes to protein powders, I will only do one smoothie, and that's going to take me up to 30 grams of protein, depending on the brand you use. One scoop peanut butter. I usually use coconut water. Some people like to use milk, almond milk, whatever you want to use. But usually it's for my post workout, because I will say that when you are doing weightlifting, you have a very short window after you work out to make sure that you feed your muscles so the work you did not just go to waste. And that's because you're in an anabolic stage. When you're in an anabolic stage, you want to feed, your muscles are open and they're looking to absorb everything. That's when you want to make sure you take your amino acids. If you're not going to have time to go eat something, supplement it with amino acids. You can use any brand. I would try to find a brand that you're already familiar with that has that. But I use First Form protein powder for my smoothies. And this has BCAAs, which already has the aminos in it. So if you could find things that already incorporate what you need to support that, that would be great. That will help you keep your muscles nice and full. And then that can be like something you take while you drive or you get ready. And then you can go have your like actual meal to support that. And even then you could have your protein between that time. But you want to feed your muscles right after you work out. So the pre is important to fuel yourself, post to make sure you recover and you're feeding your muscles for the work that you did. The other thing I would consider if you do go the supplement route is lineage. I am, because my son is autistic nonverbal, obviously the diet and nutrition for them is very important to their gut health. but their brain functioning. This particular brand likes to incorporate grass-fed protein, but it also has fruit and like liver organs in this particular protein. So Lineage, he's kind of known for that. Yeah, they have fruit and berry in here and colostrum and sea salt. So, consider that. And then the other things I would consider for supplementation to support your muscle journey and building that is obviously creatine. There's a lot of studies of that. Me and Chiah will probably just do a creatine talk. But this supports your brain. There's Dr. Rhonda Patrick and Louisa Nicola will talk about creatine. And I think Dr. Stacy Sims too, the importance of that and how it supports your muscles. And don't be afraid of it because there's a lot of old school studies from bodybuilding time that it was only for men would lose hair and da, da, da. It does not happen to women. There's enough studies now that this actually helps your cognitive function. And so if you're sleep deprived, they also suggest creatine, but that will help you support your muscle journey as far as growth and making sure it's healthy. I will say just be conscious of the water weight that creatine can give you depending on the brand as well. So if you're not exerting a lot of energy during that workout, just be conscious of your activity level when you start incorporating that. If you're new to creatine, definitely start with the minimal amount, which is usually 5 grams. But if you're new, your gut may want to start with 2 grams. Women tend to get nauseous when they start to increase their creatine. I think Dr. Stacy Sims will also say if you take creatine to also take it with a carb so that it doesn't upset your stomach. Women are a little bit more sensitive to that. And last but not least, glutamine, also an amino acid type of supplement that I use after my workout. So because I'm incorporating weightlifting and now the marathons, I get sore a lot longer, and this helps with the soreness, and that's just the amino acids being released through your muscles. As we get older, everything kind of hurts first thing in the morning, and so keeping our bones lubricated, our muscles nice and healthy. And when I talk about working out, you're literally feeding your muscles the blood, and it's loving the pump that you're giving it, when you get a pump from working out. And then from there, it feeds all that good stuff to your brain. So in all of this, intake for protein is super important. You get healthy muscles. It helps regulate your glucose. It gets you on a pathway to being strong, and you are increasing bone density when you're working out, and your cognitive health. Like you want to be a functioning woman at 70 and not be a sedentary or need to even depend on somebody to take care of you. So get your protein in. Last part I'm going to end this with is if you don't have one, I would highly suggest you get a scale, a food scale. We have all types of scales, but we should have a food scale. It wasn't until I did my bodybuilding competition that I realized that if you go to a restaurant and let's say, I don't know, it says like an 8-ounce steak, when you weigh that cooked, most likely it's going to be anywhere from 3.8 to 4 ounces. So the lack of knowledge that we have out there when we're not conscious of it can be very bad for your health in the long run. So if you're not used to it and you want to go down the journey of like, I really want to take this on, start with one of these. I don't have mine programmed, but this one I got at Bed Bath and Beyond, and it gives you like your fat, your cholesterols. It is programmed to where if it recognizes the food based on its information, it will give it to you right off the bat. But really, I only use this to calculate my protein. I don't care for the fats. I don't care for the carbs, just protein. Like I'll put my cottage cheese on there. I'll put, because if you're also not looking at the back of your, whatever it is you're eating, start doing that. When you go to the grocery store, look at it. If your protein to fat ratio and carb ratio is way low, I would put that food down. Your protein should be the highest macro that you look for in foods. And I think that's pretty much all I've got for you ladies. I think that will set you guys up for success. Again, 1.3, 1 gram of protein per body weight. I know it's hard, but the 0.8 is super old school. Like apparently that is for sedentary. Dr. Vonda Wright and Stacy Sims were on a podcast together and they're like, that's survival mode. So that's what they would give somebody who's probably like 80 on the way out. For us, we should be considering the 1.3 to 1.8 grams, and that's across the board from all the doctors. And I think that's it. Oh, we
Got
got
one
hand
hand up. Courtney has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just didn't see. You said there was a product you had in a canister that you said prevents muscle soreness. I didn't hear or see what that was.
I'm sorry, glutamine.
Glutamine. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. I'll put that too in the email. Once this is wrapped up, I'll send you guys an email with everything that we talked about, and then I'll put some links on some YouTube videos that these doctors have talked about that specifically, so you can kind of watch what they're talking about as well. And then just yeah, be aware of that. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to put in the chat. We'll do another Q&A at the end. But I want to hand it over to Chiah. Chiah is going to talk about something that I really find extremely fascinating. I'll tell you guys right now, when I did my bodybuilding, I had a shredded six pack. If you saw the graphic, that was me prior to babies. Didn't do one single ab workout. That was all diet, completely all diet. And everybody's muscular structure of their core is completely different. As I've had babies, now baby 3, also being C-section, belly's like a jelly right now. I don't know how to pull it back. And that is something that I never worked on. And so Chiah showing me these things and being able to talk about that to a friend is I'm so grateful for it. So I hope you guys find this as beneficial as I do, because no matter how long I've been in fitness, I'm still learning the importance of our deep pelvic core muscles, which unfortunately after having 3 babies is just kind of open up. So Chiah, take the floor.
Thank you. You're so inspiring, Casey. Thank you for your energy and doing the hosting and all the things for this. It's super fun to work with you. So one thing real fast, everybody put your computer on mute, go pee, and then we'll come back and do pelvic floor work with an empty bladder.
I was going to say, thank you for taking care of our pelvic.
And if you're here and you didn't go pee and you can still hear me, just find a comfortable place to sit where you're not leaning on anything. Just find something that you can sit on the floor or a pillow. I'm sitting on like a Zafu, whatever works for you. Just because I'm wanting to raise myself up so you can see me better, but sit flat, like in a lotus position to start. At some point here, the sun is going to come through my skylight and there's going to be like maybe some light going across my face, some rainbows. The rainbows are coming from the window here, so.
That's your usual state.
Rainbows across my face. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. All righty. So we'll give it a minute. I see some empty screens here. By no means do you need to have your video on. But if you want to, I can help kind of guide and correct. If anybody is pregnant, I would like to know. So please put that in the chat. And if you have had babies, you can put that in the chat. How many, if you had a C-section or they were natural, that would be helpful for me. And then if you haven't, that's great. Everybody has a pelvic floor, including men. So, you know, this is for everyone. If you are a woman that has had children or not, prolapse is a big issue. So it's something that I'll kind of address as we go through, but I'm going to just kind of back up. And okay, good. 3 babies. Yes, girl. All right. I want to just introduce myself more completely here and just talk a little bit about why I'm so inspired about pelvic floor work. A lot of you here know me, but if you don't know my story at all, I have two kids. My kids are 25 and 18, and I had lots of various issues with pregnancy, birth, all that kind of stuff, as those stories go. But the main thing that has really affected my body is that I had a series of 3 different injuries that effectively made a disc in my lower spine at L5S1 rupture and protrude into the disc above that. And if you know me, you saw me literally hobbling around on one leg for like 8 and 9 months, farming, doing crazy stuff, still stubborn as I'll get out, and saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. But I really was not fine. And in the end, I had to have that disc removed. And I've had an ovary removal. So I have a lot of scar tissue going on in this region, an episiotomy, a triple episiotomy. So there's a lot of kind of from all these angles, a lot of scar tissue and a lot of problems that sort of is a domino effect. And so one thing kind of leads to the next. And so over time, I realized that, I'm having a lot of other hormonal issues. I'm 46, and this started a while ago with the ovary removal. And so I kind of went into perimenopause way earlier than most of my friends would have, like 13 years ago. And so compounding stuff going on with my system. And I was just feeling like a lot of weakness in my core. I was leaking. I was like, I peed my pants in the grocery store. My kid was 5 years old because I thought I could hold it and I couldn't, and there was no bathroom, right? And so I've had a little bit of prolapse issues, and kind of had the whole gamut. And so I was realizing, okay, I'm not getting any younger. And here I am, I'm dealing with some pretty serious health issues, and you need to get your act together. Nobody is going to heal you. You are the only person who can help yourself, right? We can rely on all these books and podcasts and doctors and whatever we want to do, but ultimately you know your body, and you are the only one who has the power to help yourself. And so it took me a long time to really own that, and to help myself. And so here I am. I've been, now I can do pretty much 99% of everything that I couldn't do with this back issue before. It's a miracle, really, that I'm able to do what I can do at this point, but I have to be very, very careful still. So I can't go do kickboxing or I went to my friend's hot hit class. It's 102 and it's super fast paced, and it took me a week to recover from that. So I have to know my limits, and that, that's a good lesson, a reminder sometimes too. So anyways, my background lies in childbirth education. I taught childbirth education classes for 17 years. In our local area with home birthing, hospital birthing, and I actually worked at our local high school and taught junior high and high school students prenatal, postpartum, breastfeeding, and for many years. So it was heroes work. That stuff was very intense. But the childbirth education component launched me into wanting to be a doula. So I did that for a long, long time. I was a midwife assistant. I was training to do that. And so this is kind of the pelvic floor work is really, it's all connected. It's really on the other end of that spectrum. Everybody needs pelvic floor attention, even the men. We kind of gloss that over a lot. It's all very women centered on social media or in books or wherever you find your information, super female centered, but the guys really need it too. And for various and some of the same exact reasons as the women do. So let me just kind of go into, oh, one more thing that I want to say. I am working on my degree in kinesiology and health. So hopefully I'll finish that in a semester or so here. And then I'm also getting my recertifying for prenatal and postpartum corrective exercise specialist. And so it's something that I did 20 something years ago, 23 years ago. And because I'm getting back into it for my own self, I really felt like, oh, there's a lot of new information out there. There's new science. There's stuff that I don't remember. And so I wanted to recertify. So I'm in the middle of that right now. Once college is out at the end of this week or whatever, I will be finishing my certification in that this summer. So yeah, it's just kind of a lot of anatomy, a lot of that, but for this, we're not going to go into too deep of anatomy and those kind of things. I want to just give you a really broad overview, and we'll do a couple of specific exercises and kind of get into that. So initially, just talk about what the pelvic floor is and why it's important for us. The pelvic floor is this system in our bodies that's connected to everything else, right? We have this like kinetic chain in our body. And we're going to do a little meditation, so I'll kind of talk about that during this time. But the pelvic floor on the outside of your body, so for women, since most of us are women here, I see some dudes walking around in the background a little bit here, that's awesome. And some kids too, hi. So on the outside of our pelvis, we have this hammock that surrounds our anus, our vulva, our urethra, right? And so a lot of times you think you're doing Kegels, you've probably heard of Kegels. Everybody raise your hand if you've heard of Kegels. Yes. So Kegels are kind of old school. They're really not very comprehensive. They don't take into consideration the rest of the system. They're really just like this outer tissue contraction. And so I used to teach Kegels. That was the information 25 years ago. That was what we were supposed to be teaching to help women heal postpartum. And, you know, it's lacking so much. So Kegels do have their, you know, they are helping to get your body and your mind connected to that area. That's fine. But we really are going to start talking about this whole chain. So we're going to be talking about literally from our eyebrows to the outside of our pelvic floor and how connected that all is. And so then on the inside of our pelvis, we have this three-layered, multi-layered system of muscles that's holding all your organs in there. So for women, it's holding our uterus, our ovaries up, it's holding our bladder in place and our rectum, right? And so for men, when we talk about their pelvic floor health, we're also considering their prostate, their perineum, for sexual health, for pain reduction. And so, you know, for men, it's a little bit less about that external anatomy like women and the internal organs there, but obviously they have bladders and rectums too. And so it's really helpful and important for them as well. So, all right, I'm gonna put my hair up so I can get this out of get this lion mane in my way here. All right. So a lot of women come to class. I teach a pelvic floor class weekly in Chiah, and I'm hoping to do this online more. I didn't really get my act together to set up another date after today, but I'll do that eventually. So a lot of people come to class for pain reduction, postpartum care. They're having incontinence, maybe they're having leakage of urine, but incontinence in terms of bowels as well, something that we don't really talk about a lot. People are really embarrassed about talking about leakage. They're embarrassed about talking about incontinence in general. Prolapse is another issue that I get a lot of people coming to class for that. So there's different types of prolapse and different levels of prolapse. So we won't go into all that, but if you've had babies, you may have experienced some level of that. And if you've had constipation and you've never had a baby, there's a statistic that I have read that says that 50% of people have some form or some level of prolapse. That's a lot. That's half of us, right? And something that we don't even really realize, but constipation is like the #1 reason why people have prolapse. So more fiber, keep things flowing, right? And so, yes. And at any point, like if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, but I'm going to leave space at the end for that one. And so the other reason is for that people need help with their pelvic floors for pain. And that's really what I came to this for, and really getting my core back together. So, you know, no excuses, but 25 years postpartum, I still had a little bit of a separation in my abs. And that was because of all these other problems that I had going on. And I had a ton of back pain, as you could imagine, doing this work and really like doing this lifting from the top to the bottom, expanding my rib cage out, really like working on mobility in my spine and how connected that is has changed everything for me. So I could give you a million exercises, literally. If you start down that rabbit hole on the internet, you're going to find millions of things out there. And everybody has an opinion, do this, don't do this, whatever. The best place to start is with your breath. And what I train people to do in class is to retrain yourself how to breathe. And that is the #1 thing that will shift things for your body. And, you know, we're all breathing, but a lot of us are breathing very tense. We're breathing really shallow. We're breathing up here. A lot of our breath isn't like expanding our diaphragm fully. We're not getting any rib mobility at all. And so we're just holding a ton of like core tension. We think that holding our tummies in all day is helpful, and it's not. Tension is not strength. So that's one thing that I try to remember myself. I do hold a lot of anxiety. And so I hold a lot of tension here. And I see women all, you know, they come to class and immediately they're like worried about it. And I'm like, this is for all bodies. There's no judgment. The best thing you can do is to reduce your anxiety and learn how to breathe. So we're going to start with that. So I want you to get in a comfortable position. And I'm going to read this meditation so I don't forget about anything, because I am just slightly nervous. I teach this like all the time, but being on video with everybody for some reason. Okay. So ideally you're sitting on something where you feel like you could sit here for, 10 minutes, 12 minutes or so of meditation without leaning on anything. If you're on the floor, a lotus position is ideal to start. If you're on a couch or like I'm on a zafu, that's fine for the moment, but we'll want to move on to something solid at some point. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just start by closing our eyes. So as you close your eyes, allowing your shoulders to soften, get comfortable, tapping into your body here. You might also be holding some nervousness or some tension. And just direct that breath right into that place of nervousness or that place of pain that you might be holding this morning. Maybe you woke up with your neck feeling funny. Take a really big breath and just focus that breath right into that spot. And now let's let our tongue rest away from the roof of your mouth. I'm going to bring our attention to our jaw. So like I mentioned before, from the top to the bottom, it's also connected. So take a moment to unclench your jaw, maybe opening your mouth just slightly. And bringing your attention to your breath here, allowing your inhales to get a little bit longer with each inhale. And making your exhale even longer. Taking slow inhales through the nose. And a long exhale out, you relax, smooth. And breathing in softly, and breathing out with ease. And bringing your attention to elongating that inhale a little bit more. And your exhale a little bit more. So now we're going to bring our awareness to our pelvic floor. We're going to start paying attention to this connected breath or connected breath, as I like to call it. So the connected breath, as you breathe in, is expanding your pelvic floor out. So that air is moving down through your abdomen into your pelvic floor. There's an expansion happening on your inhale. And then on your exhale, there's a natural retraction or like a slight lift going on. So we're not gripping with that lift, but just letting it kind of retract as you exhale. And keep that flow going here. We'll kind of keep that flow going throughout this whole thing, unless kind of directed otherwise. Okay. And you might, in your mind's eye, imagine the actual anatomy of your pelvic floor expanding and retracting. Or you might want to visualize a flower opening and closing, whatever imagery works for you. Okay. And the body works as one connected system, so this kinetic chain. So the pelvic floor and pelvic floor work, we're not just looking at the pelvis by itself as a standalone system. We're looking at about how tension and breathing, your alignment and the movement, and pressure of your breath, travel through your entire body, from your head down to your feet. It's all connected. And keeping that connected breath going, noticing where you might be holding any tension or restriction in that chain right now. We'll start at our eyebrows. This is a place for me where I tend to hold a lot of tension. You might be one of those as well. We got this fissure down the middle of your forehead here. So give yourself a breath right into that space, into your brow. You could even put your hand there, touch that. And then moving down to your jaw, releasing again if you created new tension there. And then down into your throat, into your chest. You let that breath come down into your abdomen, noticing your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is the whole inside of your rib cage. And as you're breathing in, it's expanding. You could even put your hands there, right at the base of your ribs. That feels right. Pushing your hands away with your breath. And bringing your focus down further, down into your lower abdomen, into your organs here, into your pelvic floor. And remember that all of these areas, they speak to each other all day long as you're breathing, as you're moving. And when the jaw tightens, the pelvic floor also tightens. And your breath becomes shallow, the body learns how to brace and it grips. Your breath is talking to your body. The more you can breathe in fuller, deeper, the more connective, the more release, the more movement that your body allows. Okay, so we can bring our hands gently, put one hand on your ribs, maybe just on one side, and one on your lower belly. And as you inhale, imagine your breath elongating your spine, so sitting up a little taller, finding some space between your ribs, between each rib. As you sit up higher, kind of pulling your ponytail towards the ceiling here. And as you breathe in, you can imagine your rib cage opening kind of like an umbrella, expanding up top. And as you breathe out, coming back down, but you're maintaining this height, this space as you're sitting up nice and tall. You might notice you feel some rib expansion happening laterally, so out to the sides under your armpit space. You have your hand kind of on your side rib here. As you breathe in, feeling that expansion coming out to the side. And as you exhale, you feel a gentle rise or retraction of your vaginal and anal areas, kind of a little lift with your exhale. Feel a release happening through your pelvic bowl, through your hips. A lot of us hold tension in our hips. And even in your sits bones, you'll feel this rise and relaxation here. So allow your breath to fully fill all the way down into your pelvic floor as you're breathing in, imagining those sits bones, imagining your pelvis sort of breathing with your movement. Not squeezing, just softening. And now bring your attention back up to your face. It's good to have a reminder. Relax your muscles around your eyes and the forehead again. Unclench your teeth. Let your throat become spacious. We tend to hold a lot of tension in our throats. Maybe there's something we're not saying, something that we want to say. And let's all do a big lion yawn together, opening your mouth. You can even make a roaring sound if it feels right. Ah. Letting your jaw open all the way and release any tension you might be holding there in your temples, below your ears. You can put your hands there if that helps. Guide, drawing your hands out towards the front of your jaw.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Some good roaring there. All right. All right, so now let's imagine as your breath travels down in a spiral from your jaw, down your neck, into your chest, imagining this movement here happening through your heart, and your diaphragm, down into your sacred center, into your core. So if you're not already kind of in this gentle movement, I can see some of you starting to move in the spiral action. We'll start moving to the right, bringing our bodies into a spiral as we breathe in. And you can imagine maybe there's a plate underneath you on the floor, and you're sort of tracing that plate in spiral motion. And we'll go to the right about a dozen times or so. And so remembering that all of your ribs are connected to your thoracic spine, your mid-spine. And so the more movement that we have, you can create this movement a little bit bigger. Switch going the other way if you haven't already. If you've done about a dozen, switch going the other way. So all of your ribs are connected to your thoracic spine here. More mobility that you have in your spine, the more capacity that you have for your rib cage to expand, and more mobility that you have in your rib cage. So switch and go the other way again. So we're moving our pressure of our breath with each inhale into our rib cage, right? You keep that motion going. You can switch again if you haven't already. So pressure management in this work is really important. A lot of times we breathe and that pressure is just going up really high, and it's not being allowed to expand our rib cage, or else you're pushing pressure down into your pelvic floor, which we want to avoid. So you can kind of come to a pause here. Okay. Okay, so we're going to sort of slow our breath down a little bit more here. We're going to come back to the room in a moment. But all this nice long inhales and long exhales is allowing our nervous system to settle down, allowing that mobility in your spine and your ribs increase with each breath. And we'll come to pause here. Remind yourself, you do not have to hold yourself so tightly right now. You do not need to hold any tension. It's a supportive environment. You're in a safe place. And your body does know how to soften, does know how to relax, it does know how to expand. Bring that breath in. And let's just take one big final inhale here, feeling that difference in the expansion of your rib cage, all the way up top, from side to side, all the way around back. You might even notice some movement of your shoulder blades gliding a little bit here. Okay. So we'll return to this space here where you're sitting. You can open your eyes again and come back to the room. So like I mentioned in the beginning, that teaching you how to retrain yourself to breathe is really the best tool that I could offer you. But there is a lot of different exercises. There's a lot of different breathing techniques. And so I cover a few of those in my class. I'm going to get off my back now because I want to sit more on the floor. So you can change position if that's comfortable for you. I might actually sit on my knees for a moment. So you can see a little bit better. Just slightly. Okay. So, how does everybody feel? Feeling present, feeling relaxed? Okay.
Great.
All right, good. Okay, so we're going to work on diaphragmatic breathing. We may end up going over time since we kind of started about 10 minutes late. We'll probably go about that. And then we'll go into a couple of simple movements. But the main thing that I want to impart on you is that you can utilize your breath to do any exercise. You can create any movement and really in your life to be conscious of your pelvic floor and to disperse this pressure from our breathing and tension pressure throughout our bodies so that we're not concentrating that pressure down into our pelvic bowl. What I see a lot is we're holding this tension here. And when you're breathing really shallowly, the breath is just kind of up top. You're not getting a lot of motion. You're tightening, you're gripping here. And that is sort of pushing this pressure down into your pelvic bowl. So that pelvic bowl again is where all your organs are sitting. And so when we're pushing pressure there, that's creating more tension and it's creating dysfunction over time. Chronic tension, right? And chronic anxiety, all these things really lead to issues. And if we're having constipation and we're like pushing to go to the bathroom, we're creating a ton of pressure unnecessarily. So really working on drinking more water, eating your fiber, having regular bowel movements. Something that I love to do just before we get into this breathing is body mapping. If you've heard of that before, but in my classes we do more like pelvic mapping because we don't have time to go through the whole system. But that body mapping, really thinking of your abdomen as a clock, so your pubic bone as 12 o'clock. So if you're like looking down at the clock, your pubic bone is 12 o'clock. And right here in between the ribs is 6 o'clock. You have 3 o'clock as your right hip and your left hip 9 o'clock. And doing some fascia release when you start out. So fascia release, like we have fascia through our whole bodies, connective tissue. And so doing that work a little bit before you start, I have a million tools in my workout room, but if you have a roller, you don't have to get a fancy one like this, but I love this thing because it has, you can see in the light, but it has a dip here. So your spine kind of goes in there. This thing is amazing for cracking my back. But also I use it for releasing fascia. If you don't have one of those and you have a regular roller, that's awesome too. And you can use something like this in your practice, or a rolled up towel. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to spend money on anything. So if you have a roller
guns?
or a rolled up towel, that works really great. So I use that to kind of like start working on spine mobility. So I start out on there, leaning over it and trying to unwind this little hunch that I started developing in my upper spine. Looking at the computer a lot, right? Looking at your phone neck, whatever they call it these days. So if you can work on that system before you start any movement, you'll have so much benefit from that. But in terms of our abdomen here and this clock that we have here, working on as you go around your body, starting at your bladder, coming up around your ribs and then back down the other side. I take both hands and kind of curve them under my rib cage. And so working this fascia here back and forth a couple times is really helpful in rib mobility. And so obviously if you have any scar tissue, talking about digestion with body mapping, we're talking about hernias, we're talking about our ovaries, our bladder, everything there. But just putting any loving attention and gratitude to your organs. Thank your bladder. Make sure to thank your bladder like 100 times a day because it does a lot of work for you. It does really good work for you. Okay. So we could spend a lot of time on body mapping and all that, but just to give you some tips, and we'll go into diaphragmatic breathing next. And so with diaphragmatic breathing, what we're doing is we are kind of focusing our breath into our ribs. So as you're beginning to exercise, you want to be stabilizing your core, right? We're paying a lot of attention to preventing and reducing back pain by using our breath and the way that we move the pressure around in our torso. And so with diaphragmatic breathing, you're breathing into your rib cage nice and big up top, and you can get in a position that you're comfortable to do that right now. So just follow me along follow along with me, but I'll just kind of explain it and then we'll go through it together. So breathing nice and big into your rib cage all the way around. So I say 360, and that just means imagining and feeling the movement. You might not at first feel a lot of movement there, but imagining your breath expanding your rib cage all the way around. So then as we exhale, we're going to be lifting from our pelvic floor in the sort of scoop action. You might hear, and I say it sometimes too, but in class, like bringing your belly button towards your spine, that's not exactly what we want to be focusing on. We're not really trying to get that like squeezing action, so much compression that way. What we're really wanting to do in this scooping action as we lift our pelvic floor up, we really want our belly button to go up. So this scoop and lift that's happening here. Okay. Bye, Claire. Thanks for coming. Okay, so this scooping action, belly button's gliding up towards your rib cage in the front here. And then we're holding that, we call it a zip, kind of zipping it up, right? You can imagine, so like the big zipper. So from the bottom up, coming all the way up to our right underneath our rib cage. And then a lot of us have a rib flare. Super common if you've had babies before, but it happens for people who haven't had babies too. So as we're zipping it up, before we execute any kind of exercise or putting two legs in the air simultaneously, especially, like I'm notorious for this. When I get out of bed in the morning, I will like do like a big like legs go up and I rock forward and get out of bed. So before you do anything like that, we really want to stabilize our core so we don't hurt our lower back and cause some damage, right? So we're zipping it all the way up, ribs come down and together in the front, stabilizing that corset here. And then lift your legs up in the air, then step up the stairs, then reach forward and pick up your kid or your groceries or whatever you're going to do. Okay. So stabilizing first and then taking that action. And it's all using this breath pressure management system. All right, so let's release our breath out if you've been holding this nice expansion here this whole time as I was talking. Okay, let's start from scratch. So with our diaphragmatic breathing, take a nice big breath in, expanding your rib cage out. And then as you exhale, lifting from your pelvic floor, that belly button is gliding up, ribs come down and together in the front. So this zip. And now you're still breathing in and out, holding that corset, holding that bracing, but your rib cage is what is expanding. The breath is moving through your shoulder blades, your side ribs, your chest is rising and falling all the way around 360. A couple breaths here at the top. And then let it all go. Let everything soften, release your abdomen, the pelvic floor, expanding back out. Let's do that again. Big breath in. Full rib cage expansion here. And as you exhale, lifting up. The pelvic floor, through the abdomen, belly button's rising up. Ribs come down and together in the front. Holding that bracing here. And now breathing into your chest and ribs all the way around 360. Do a couple of big breaths here at the top. And then as you exhale, letting everything down, letting everything go. So if you're doing any kind of Pilates, for instance, I have a lot of girls that come to my classes and they go to Pilates and they're like, this is the opposite of how they are wanting to do this in class. This is the opposite of how I learned. I see somebody, Rose said, this is a completely different way to breathe. Yes, like we've been kind of taught, you know, that you go into a class, right, and you're just following along with the teacher. You're trusting that they know what they're doing. I have hurt myself in a lot of exercise classes. I will tell you that before I really knew anything, or I would just kind of follow what the teacher was saying without taking much consideration for my core. and for my breath, and the way that I was moving pressure around with my sitting position here. But you can really hurt yourself in a class like that. And especially if things are moving fast and you don't want to be different, you don't want to pause, you don't want to like bring attention to yourself, you don't want to like go into a child's pose while they're all doing, you know, whatever they're doing. It's okay. Like you can take that moment for yourself to pause if you're feeling like off. Especially if you're having back issues or you're having prolapse pressure issues at all. Really monitoring that pressure before you do anything will help you a lot. Okay, so let's do one other breathing technique. And this is for really pulling pressure out of your pelvic bowl. This is something that I recommend. Hypopressive breath is what it's called. And a hypopressive is a little tricky. It takes a little while to kind of wrap your mind around it. And use a balloon. Yes, a balloon is a really great tool. Yeah. I didn't bring one, but that's a really great way to kind of train your breath. So with the hypopressives, a lot of us hold a lot of pressure down into our pelvic bowl. I know as I age, even though I'm like super conscious about my core and I'm conscious about my breathing now, I notice towards the end of the day, there's a lot of pressure there. And I find that at the end of the day, when I'm trying to relax, I notice that my pelvic floor is tense and it's not even. Like you might think like you have pelvic floor tension and you're just feeling like kind of consistently all around. It can be just on one side. It could be in the back, it could be in the front, it could be your tailbone. So it's all connected, right? So that is that for me is a reminder that I need to take my attention back to my breath and go back to that connective breath that we started in the meditation. So whenever I'm feeling that tension, and sometimes it takes like 5 minutes or so of breathing in a connective breath way to have that tension completely release in that moment. So you don't need to take a lot of time for it, but the consciousness is really important to kind of bring your focus back. So I know for me at the end of the day, there's a million thoughts rolling around in my mind. I'm tense about other things. It's not because I'm holding necessarily some kind of physical issue going on. It's just that tension is creating tension everywhere. So bringing it back to that as you inhale, expansion, exhale, retraction, and just really bring it right there. And that will shift things for you pretty quickly. With the hypopressives, so like I was saying, with age, we can tend to get a lot of pressure down in our pelvic bowl. And it's from, it might be from a heavy meal you just ate, even. It's like putting more pressure down. It could be just from sitting or standing all day. And so this is not necessarily just for people with prolapse. All right, so for hypopressives, and I don't know if you can see me that it's the light now, but I'll try to turn to the side so you can kind of see. So with hypopressives, you can practice with me here. We're going to take a big breath in, similar to what we were just doing with the diaphragmatic breathing. So we're breathing into our rib cage up top, expanding out as full as we can. And now as we exhale, like you're blowing out a candle, your belly button is coming in towards your spine. And you're holding that exhale at the bottom. And now you're not going to breathe in again. You're going to actually hold your breath. But you're going to create a vacuum like you're about to breathe in. It creates a little bit of a convex shape here. Okay, so as you exhale, candle breath, belly button goes towards the spine. You're still maintaining this rib expansion up top and holding this for like 3, 4, 5 seconds with that vacuum effect. And you can feel that as that scoop action comes up, the pressure lifts up out of your pelvic bowl, and then release, let everything down. Let's try that one more time. So just imagining that pressure. If you're not feeling that pressure change, just even imagining it helps you start connecting there. Okay, so big breath in, rib cage expansion up top. Holding that expansion, exhale out like a blown candle. Belly button goes towards the spine. And now, like you're going to breathe in, you create this vacuum effect here. Holding that. and then letting it all go. The pressure go back down. Okay. So that's a quick technique. It takes a little bit of time to figure out. Honestly, I've taken like a bunch of different mini courses and things, and in my trainings, like I just kind of go like, what do you mean like you're gonna breathe in? So it's a little bit tricky, but kind of get that through practice. Okay. All right. So before we go into one, I'll just probably do like one or two quick movement exercises with you guys. But before we do that, I want to teach you something called the knack. And the knack is like a little trick that you can do to help prevent leakage specifically. It can help you prevent accidentally farting or pooping your pants too. So any kind of continence issues. Okay. So first, you can go ahead and just cough, but I want you to pay attention to, before you do it, sorry, pay attention to where the pressure goes when you do that in your body. Like, I want you to take note of that and then tell me afterwards, okay, where you felt the pressure. So just do a couple big coughs. Okay, so where do you notice that pressure happening? If you want to comment or just unmute really quick. In your belly, okay. Anybody else?
Mine is like really lower abdominal, kind of where the C-section scar area is.
Okay. Behind the back ribs, okay.
Yeah, I felt it right at the bottom, kind of my torso.
Yeah, okay. Okay, great. So the idea with the knack is that we're going to prevent that pressure from going like thud, right? Down into our pelvic floor specifically. So this is great if you're about to laugh really hard, or you're about to cough, like maybe you've been sick and you just, that just like relentless coughing. Or, you're going to yell for somebody or whatever. This is a preventative measure that you can use so that you don't pee your pants when you do that. And so let's change up how we just did our coughing. So this time you're going to take a big breath in right before you're like, oh, here it comes, or I'm about, prepare yourself. So it's about to happen. Big breath in, exhale, lift like you're holding in your pee, right? So quick lift, tightening that pelvic floor mostly through like belly button and below. So that lift is happening here. Now cough. Where does your pressure go this time? Hopefully it goes up higher. Hopefully it's not going below your belly button. Ideally, it's kind of staying above your ribs here and it's dispersing up top. So that's a trick that you can use to help prevent leakage. Tell your mom, tell your aunts, whatever, because everybody needs that. I've been, sick so much, like the relentless cough, just like, oh, it's so torturous, right? And so anyways, quick trick to help you out there. All right, let's move a little bit. Let's go into our hands and knees really quick. If you have a nice, comfortable space if you have a yoga mat or if you're on a carpet or whatever. Hopefully you can all see me because the sun is really shifting and coming right above my head here. Oh, trampolining with kids. Oh, that'll do it. That's how I got my period for the first time when I was a teenager. It's jumping on the trampoline. So yeah, stuff comes out, right? Okay. All right, so we're gonna go on our hands and knees, and just another way to kind of use our breath and prepare ourselves for exercising. So that diaphragmatic breath can be used to prepare you for any kind of exercises, right? And so similarly, we can use it in a hands and knees position. You can use it on your back. And so once you start going into exercise mode with diaphragmatic breathing, just move this back. We're going to be implementing a pelvic tilt with this. Okay. So when we're doing a pelvic tilt, you could just, if you want to stand on your knees for a second. The pelvic tilt is a vital component in this diaphragmatic breath. And we're just sitting in a lotus position. It's really hard to get any kind of tilt in there, and don't really necessarily need it to kind of practice that breath. But once you're implementing it into another exercise, you're going to be conscientious about that tilt action. So what I mean by pelvic tilt is that your tailbone is kind of scooping towards your pubic bone, and it's a slight action. It's not like a big old movement, okay, but just a slight tuck. But we're not initiating it from our glutes. We're not initiating it from our butt cheeks. We are really, you might notice kind of in the front here, belly button and below, between your pubic bone and your belly button is really where you're kind of like the tilt is being initiated from that area. Your inner thighs and your glutes will kind of get involved a little bit, but that's not the focus. We don't want to glute clench to tilt our pelvis. Okay, so you put your hands right on your front, right below your belly button, and then tilting there like you're taking your tailbone towards your pubic bone. It's a slight movement, maybe an inch, really. Okay. So when we're on our hands and knees, you can go ahead and get in that position. So when we're on our hands and knees, just initially let your belly hang down, and you'll have a slight bow here, right? Okay. Just very slight. We don't want to be into this kind of cow position, the cat cow, right? We want to be in just a slight bow. And so that is a neutral position. And so now as we tuck our pelvis, initiating from your lower abdomen, tucking that tailbone towards your pubic bone, you're flattening your lower back here, and your belly button is kind of rising up. Right? In this position, you are getting that from that belly hang. We're kind of moving into this belly button rises up a little bit, pelvis is tilting. So from here, you can then go into any of your other, like, do bird dogs or whatever exercise you're going to be doing in the, with your routine, and you've stabilized your core this way. So let's start with the breath. So let your belly hang down. Go back into that neutral position. Big breath into your chest and your ribs all the way around. Expanding up top, and then candle breath out. And as you exhale, tilting your pelvis just slightly. Belly button's rising up. Your ribs come down together in the front there as we zipped it all the way up. And now you can still breathe into your chest, into your ribs, and that armpit space. You can imagine as you're breathing in, but through your armpits, you can focus your breath into that space. Feel that expansion there in your side ribs. Maintaining that tilt, maintaining that zip all the way from the pelvic floor up to your ribs in the front. And still breathing into your chest. And pushing the floor away with your hands, so you're not dropping down. Bringing your shoulder blades together, you want that expansion there. And on the next exhale, just go ahead and release everything down, let your belly hang down, let your back go down again into that neutral position. Okay, so this time we're going to do a couple of lifts, and I'll do a couple of things here in this mini bear position, mini bear exercises. So as you're pushing that energy through your hands into the floor, lifting through your shoulders, curl your toes under. So you're kind of on your toes here. Okay, so toes are curled under. You're going to take a big breath into your chest, into your ribs, all the way around. And as you exhale, candle breath, tilting your pelvis, zipping it all the way up. Holding here, but you're still going to be breathing in. Take a big breath. And then push up off the floor, lifting your knees about 4 or 6 inches off the floor. And if this is a good place to start for you, and this is hard enough, that's fine. You can stay here. This is really a hard thing to do, actually. And you can hang out here for a minute. If that feels good, you're still breathing. Don't forget to breathe. Focusing that breath into your ribs all the way around 360. And then go ahead and bring your knees back to the floor. Uncurl your toes. And sit back on your feet. How's everybody feeling? Still here? Okay. All right. I want to be conscious of everybody's time. We have gone over a little bit. So we'll just do one more exercise and then we'll open it up for talking, and I'll show you a book that you could reference as well. Okay, so let's go back on our hands and knees for one last thing here. So in these mini bear exercises, I love these because you can incorporate a Pilates ball or like a kid's ball. This is a Pilates ball, but I also just went to the store and bought like a, 98-cent kids ball. You could use a yoga block in this too, holding it between your knees. So I'll just demonstrate with the yoga block. So for mini bears, let's go back onto our hands and knees here, and we're in a neutral spine position. Tucked our toes. Nice big breath in, so expanding that rib cage all the way around. And as you exhale, tilting your pelvis a little bit there, zipping all the way up, so lifting into your pelvic floor all the way through, ribs come down and together in the front before you execute any lift or any exercise. Stabilizing there, nice big breath in, and lifting up, pushing up from your toes, holding that block or whatever you have, if you have something there. And squeezing. So this is engaging your full core all the way from your pelvic floor all the way up, right? And so if you have any kind of diastasis, anything like that, this is great for that separation in abs. And so then we'll go into these lifts. So you're going to drop down towards the floor and back up, and you're still breathing. You're just doing simple lifts. And if you're adding in something to squeeze, giving you that little bit extra, getting your glutes involved, getting your inner thighs involved. And you can do about 10 of these or so. Still breathing. And then go ahead and drop down to your knees. Sit back on your feet. It's one of my favorite things to do. We do this in class a lot, but the next level, I would take that block and then I would swing from one side to the other, getting a little spine mobility there, a little twist, and dropping to the outside of each knee. It's another level. Okay. But there's, like I said, literally a million exercises that you can do to incorporate core and pelvic floor work. It's just a matter of being conscious about your core tension, right? And your core strength before you do anything. And I know with mamas, it's like, how did you hurt your back? I don't know. I just picked my kid up, right? And so that just tends to happen. We forget and we're just moving really quickly. We're doing something really fast and we kind of forget. And that's how we hurt ourselves. So that's kind of what you hear so commonly from people, like, how did you hurt? I don't really know. I did something funny, right? So getting in and out of your car, walking up the stairs. So utilizing that diaphragmatic breath throughout your day will help prevent any accidents or any leakage too, right? So this is a little trick that or a little term that I use now. It's just core consciousness. So having that core consciousness all the time is really helpful. And as somebody with severe back issues and all that, like I have to be really conscious of it. And as soon as I drop my attention from that, something inevitably happens. I go pick up something or do something funny. So, all right. Thank you, ladies. I wish we had like a full, and I could take you through like a full exercise class. This is something that I want to be offering online more often. Definitely want to do some live.
We're going to have a Chiah channel. Chiah
Yeah.
channel. I think that'd be great.
Eventually. I mean, you can follow, there's a million people online to, hop onto their courses or watch little clips or whatever. There's so many great people out there doing good work like this. But for me, it's super personal, just my own healing. It has changed things so much for me. And so I really encourage anybody to just try 5 minutes a day. You don't have to do anything crazy, just even if you're sitting at your desk and you're feeling like you need a little bit of movement, just bring it back to the breath, bring it back to that rib expansion, moving that pressure around, and that's a good start. So yeah. All right, let's see. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, anything to share? I'd love to. A Chiah channel. There you go. Thanks.
I've never seen that exercise before, so thank you for introducing me.
Sure. And when you say that exercise, you're meaning
The one that you just did.
oh, the mini bears. Mm-hmm.
And with the knee tightening, or I don't know how you want to refer to that, but squeezing the knees together with the resistance. Mm-hmm.
And you could do literally the same thing laying on your back with that diaphragmatic breath. And so that pelvic tilt in there and squeezing something between your knees. If you just start there, like if you have, tender wrists or shoulders or elbows or whatever, and you want to just start by laying on your back with your knees bent and doing the same thing. It's just like a simple tilt of the pelvis and squeezing something between your knees as the next level. And just starting there, that's super simple. And can do that in bed before you get out of bed in the morning.
I have a question, Chiah. For the pelvic tilt, I've seen them putting that green roller that you just showed underneath to help the tilt of our hips, like, I guess, stay neutral. And they would do kind of like the leg lifts.
Mm-hmm.
Would that make a difference for us? Like how beneficial?
Oh, the roller, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, they put it like under their hips. That way that they're.
This is what I do most of my exercises on, actually, is I go on here. But this took me a long time because of my back injury.
Yeah, it feels funny when I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, I would not start you out on this.
Okay.
Laying flat on your back. But yeah, with this, if you're going to use a roller or a block, honestly, I don't like the blocks because the edge kind of digs.
I see.
And my soft bone, but some of them can be kind of, cork or whatever, harder. But yeah, here, I'll show you. So
yeah, exactly.
You're
to help that pelvic
on your perpendicular.
Right.
And so you want to maintain this like straight line between your shoulder blades and your hips, because you don't want to be kind of bowing down into a C position at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of cheating here. I'm not really supposed to do this. I just lifted my legs in the air without tightening my core. But you want to stabilize before you lift your legs up. And so I do a lot of stuff, here with weights or bands. So I'm doing, like even my kettlebells above my head, doing different exercises, like depends on what mood I'm in. But yeah, I would say I do probably like 75% of my workout on a roller like this.
I feel like it helps me activate my that core area that I need to, because obviously being fresh off the C-section, I also feel like I have the diastasis where it's separated. I could tell my abs are my whole core area is way different than it was with the two babies. The C-section is just a whole different ball game. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out best ways to really find it, because even in the breathing, I'm like, I really have to focus on my breathing to find that zip where you're supposed to feel it up. And so yeah, to me, I think this is great. The vacuums I loved, because in the bodybuilding world, they will teach us to do vacuums because it helps also trim a waist. So if guys were competing in physique, or me in the bikini class, you want the tightest waist, and supposedly that helps really bring the inches down on waist. I came across some lady that said when you were freshly out of postpartum, sometimes it's hard to find that deep core. So she which I find it easier for me to do the vacuum, is pushing against something. So she would push like against the counter and then do that because once you have it tight, it's hard to do the second part to where you do the vacuum and then you have that. So I love that you went over that, and all of this. I think also if you guys are going to start doing weight training, the thing that she talked about, embracing your core before you do any activity, that would be the same thing. Brace our core right before we do deadlift, brace our core before squat. So it's all so beautifully well put together that, the core, that inside, that little, flower that you talk about is so vital to everything else that we have going on. So I appreciate you went over the vacuum
So
stuff.
connected, like, I spoke about in the meditation, it's like kind of forget we're holding all this tension here, that it is affecting our pelvic floor and vice versa. And so just like, I know I clench at night. I definitely grind my teeth. Yeah. And so I imagine there's a lot of kind of residual tension when I wake up in the morning. I never really wake up feeling fully like, oh, great, I feel so relaxed. Like that does not happen for me, right? Especially since having back issues or kid.
Got a question, Rose?
Just bringing that attention back. That's the thing, is like, you're like, oh, I feel so off today, whatever this thing is going on with me. And like, what am I going to do? Like, just breathe, bring it back to the breath. If you can start there, then that's a good start,
Yeah, didn't realize how shallow my breathing was till started looking into breathing. I'm like, oh, you think you're breathing right until you like really look into how you're breathing. But yeah, it's, the life we live in today in the world where we're just go, 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 go. Rose has a question.
Yes, go ahead and unmute yours.
Hi.
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 I guess I was wondering if in those moments where you're able to bring consciousness into the way that you're moving when you're walking and just going about your day to day, is there anything that you think is particularly valuable in terms of concentrating that consciousness into posture? So like, for example, the hip tilt or a sense of lifting from somewhere, because I do find sometimes that it in my mind it translates, like you were talking about, into tension rather than like a lift.
Yeah. Well, okay, so for like walking or that kind of like hiking or upright movement, so it's all about this balance, right? I think, especially somebody like me who's had a back issue. I have right side issues, like my right leg was affected. I have drop foot, all this stuff. Like I couldn't use my right leg for a long time. It's taken me a lot of time to get back to having a balance that's very similar on both sides of my body. Like most of us have an imbalance somewhere. Like we're not perfect and we're, asymmetrical, whatever. But the most simple thing that you could do is like stacking. Okay, so I'm trying to do this when you're standing, but I can do this sort of on my knees so you can see my full body here, is rib stacking. So when you're walking, there's a little bit of a pelvic tilt. You're loosening your knees, right? So you're releasing your knees a little bit. A lot of us stand like everything's like totally like firm and your knees are locked. And then so, that's putting tension there. So if you can release your knees just a little bit and allow this like slight pelvic tilt to happen when you're just chopping vegetables or whatever you're doing in your day-to-day activity, just releasing that out, first of all, is going to just shift the tension. But for rib stacking and your posture, so for me, I was talking about my hunch here because I'm like this a lot. So the rib stacking really helped me with that, and it's taken a long time to feel comfortable sitting up straight. When you tend to hunch forever or you have postural alignment issues, it feels awkward and it actually hurts to sit or stand up fully straight. So give yourself some grace because it will take some time. But so with rib stacking, you can try this if you could sit in like on your bent knees kind of in this position, if that feels right. So there's a little pelvic tilt action happening here. So you're you're drawing up your core. Let me just take a big breath there. And as I exhale, belly button's coming in a little bit. I'm sort of rocking my pelvis forward, and in that same motion, it sort of pushes my torso backwards. So I'm holding that core, and then I'm paying close attention to my upper body. I almost feel like I'm gonna like fall over backwards. That's really sitting up straight and pulling your ponytail towards the ceiling. And there's almost like this slight lift of your bottom, because your glutes get involved, the core is fully involved, your back muscles are involved all the way up, down from your neck, all the way down. And you're kind of getting this slight lift as you exhale and sitting back into it. So with rib stacking, I would suggest the same thing when you're standing. I won't be able to see you, but similar thing, like when you're standing, so loosening your knees just a little bit and then rocking that pelvis. And we're not like using our butt cheeks to do that. We're not like clenching. I notice, like, they call it mom butt. I've heard that term a bunch, right? Like, I'm notorious at doing that too. So I really had to bring a lot of awareness into that, because that does create other tension, and especially in the pelvic floor. But if you're releasing your knees a little bit, you're just kind of standing in this relaxed position, and you're bringing that pelvic tilt from your between your belly button and your pubic bone, and just like this slight tilt, and being conscious about, since you can't see my upper body, sort of bringing my ribs backwards just a little bit, and it does engage your core fully. So I think if you're walking or hiking, especially, like, you want to be relaxed, but you also need to hold some core bracing in order to not hurt yourself. So I guess that's my advice there, just to be paying attention to your alignment. And in terms of the balance, we could just do one quick thing. So if you have a block or just a step in your house, works just fine. So can you see that block?
Yeah.
I like to do these in class. We have mirrors so you can really see your alignment really well. But you can do this, like, stand, on the bottom step or whatever in your house. And as you lift, you're kind of doing these like quick lifts of your pelvic floor each time. And you'll be taking your floor leg straight towards the ceiling. So we don't want to be like tilting off to one side. We're really pushing, like, you can use your toe to stabilize your body, and just rising and raising and lowering. So your floor leg is just going straight up, and it seems like not a very big action, or like it's not really doing anything, but it's helping to rebalance your pelvis. And that, for a lot of us, we tend, like, if we have kids, we sort of stand like this, and you're holding a kid on your hip. I notice that a lot with moms, right? I do it myself even still. So just trying to pay attention to that balance in your pelvis, just in your daily actions. Because if you tend to stand like this all the time, everything gets kind of off balance. You're correcting, and you're kind of like compensating constantly for that. And then you might have foot issues, you might have upper back issues, and it's all just from this little bit of a tweak in your posture that you're doing all the time. So I'm trying, just personally, this is a big challenge for me. Just always kind of paying attention to that and on the actions that I'm doing. So something really simple, you can get your kids involved, like do some step exercises. It's kind of fun. So when you lift up, that's when you're using that breath. You do that pelvic floor lift each time as you lift up. It's just like a quick action.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for runners, we are told to imagine a balloon, like we're a balloon, to keep our posture up, to keep the core engaged. And so when you're talking about just walking around, I when I'm going on walks with my 11-month-year-old trying to put him to bed, that's like I'm practicing my breathing. And even though I'm standing, it doesn't look like I'm working out. I think that's a good time for you to even realize when I'm walking around how loose our midsection is when we're just constantly like what Chia is talking about just kind of having that hunch. And most women who have just recently been pregnant, I noticed this about myself in pictures that I've seen, is that my belly, being that we have that big belly when we're pregnant, I tend to put the pressure and just start putting my weight on the belly, that after that I have to readjust myself. So as she has said, I'm also trying to make sure that I don't have that little, you develop the little hunch right over your neck, and that's from just the lack of engaging our core. And then second thing that I think both me and Chia follow her. God, I don't remember her name, but she talks about the stretchy pants. We have been programmed to wear these yoga stretchy pants that go all the way up to here, and it feels like we're all nice and tight. And now that I've been aware of that, I've been trying to drop those down and walk around to see if I'm still engaging, or is it the pants that make me feel I'm engaging? We'll put it in the show notes, but she talks a lot about the rib flare. Gee, I can't remember her name, but she's also very into weightlifting. But she gets a lot of havoc from people on the internet about why she rolls down her pants so far down. And it's because she's constantly teaching about the core. But when we're just constantly wearing these yoga pants all day long and they go all the way to our ribs, we're just like wearing a mini corset kind of in the sense. And I think I know for myself, I've just totally lost the core engagement and even the consciousness of it. So bringing it back to the forefront of our day to day, something so simple as what she is talking about, the breathing, even that made me realize how short my breathing is, how my ribs are either flaring or instead of going down when I need to engage my core. So I personally thank you, Chia. I did all the movements and I thought this was amazing. So I know we're at 11:30. So people have dropped. I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
I'll show you this book while we see if anybody has a question. But
Oh,
so this is Yoga for Pelvic Floor Health. I don't know how to say her name, but Leah Robel, but it's Wrodel. This is a sweet little book. There's a million things out there. You can find tons of books and all that, but sometimes I just need inspiration. I feel like I'll be teaching the same thing every week or whatever. I'm doing the same thing in my practice at home, and it's kind of a combination of Pilates, yoga, obviously pelvic floor stuff, but physical therapy as well. Like I'm kind of incorporating a lot of different things to make my routine comfortable for me, and like focusing on different aspects, more than others at certain times, and just flow with it. Like do what feels good. Like I start out on a vibration plate most of the time. That's how I usually start out my workout. So that's something you want to incorporate. It's fun. There's something that's a little different. It's kind of weird at first. At first, you might feel like you're like, what is this? My brain is like rattling around, and you learn how to stand on it so that doesn't happen. There's postural adjustments there. And for somebody who's had severe nerve damage, that thing really saved me. It helped me learn how to re-stabilize. It's kind of like micro movements to help me stabilize. And now I can, not bragging, but I can stand on it and do like tree pose. I can stand on one leg on there and do exercises on that vibration plate. And at first I didn't think I could do it for 5 minutes. So that's a really amazing little tool that you can implement. But just like my best advice is to move every day. If you have to sit a lot for your job, every hour, get up and move for 5 minutes, walk around, do some jumping jacks. It gets your brain like back in action too. And as you spoke to earlier about cognitive decline and like hormones affecting how our brain is working or not working, it's just so vital to like move your body, get some fresh air, do something different, shift of your routine. Like you're always doing the same thing. Your body like learns that track, and it just kind of stays in that track. We just kind of like dig these, canyons for ourselves, and we can't really get out of them. But if you just try one new thing Just implement one thing, see how you like that, put that in your routine. And then it's easier to bring in new things. And over time, you'll shift your whole outlook, your body will change, and it's not overnight. So
Yeah, constant learning, tweaking, listening. I think, being aware and listening to our bodies, because everybody's body's different. So only certain things are going to work. Not everybody's in the same season as we are. And so, I think the awareness and being conscious of how to apply it to our life, and then how to keep it like consistent so that you can make it a lifestyle rather than it being a trend or a diet that phases out. So
keep in mind that you do not want to be that old lady wearing a diaper.
oh my
This is the goal. Like one of my grandmothers, that's how she lived the last few years of her life. And it's like, I keep thinking about that. Like, nope, it's not gonna be me. I'm gonna still be carrying firewood and like going out there and weeding my garden at that age. That's how I want to be. I do not want to be like not being able to get 5 minutes away from the toilet at any one time. So that for me is a motivation in itself.
Yes, I love it. I'm with it. Anybody else? Is there any questions before we wrap up? Again, we'll do our best to get all this information in a nice format for you guys to take back and go back to if you guys need to, and then you'll be able to replay any pieces you guys like on YouTube.
Well, thank you so much, Casey, for all your work with the setting up everything. I really appreciate you. I'm stoked that we did this. We made it. We were like kind of nervous. And
more to come. More to come. Yeah. And if you guys connect with us on socials, please feel free to DM us any other ideas that you guys would like us to bring on. And we'll do our best to continue to do this for our community of women. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great Sunday and are set for the week. Get those meals planned so you don't have to think twice during the week, especially the mamas with the little ones running around. And movement. Remember, less counting and measuring of effort will outweigh in the long run. But thank you again, everybody. And Chiah, thank you again for doing this with me.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do it again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great Sunday.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.